Hi, it's Jason. Today I'm going to read from Floki's Army, chapters 19 and chapters 20. Chapter 19. All good things must. Unfortunately, after a year or so in the Shih Tzu page, things started to change. Jason theorized that the stress of managing a group like this and keeping it the kind of group that they wanted was being too much for the administration. There always had to be policing of members who would either violate the rules or just make mean comments. It was a family-run page and probably needed more help so that the stress didn't become burdensome. The stress resulted in some uncharacteristic comments from administration, and Jason knew it was time to leave. Such a shame. Jason had built some strong relationships over time and was going to miss the camaraderie and the opportunities to show off his dogs. Nonetheless, it was time to move on. Jason entered one last post, thanking the members for their kindness and letting them know that he would be leaving the group. He didn't want people to think that something bad had happened, and that's why they didn't see his post anymore. He knew it was the right thing to do, even though it was not well received by the administration. There was no way around it. 2 weeks later, Jason was informed by a member of the group that he had officially and publicly been thrown out of the group. The member's name was Lee Hedstrom. She and Jason had become friends on the page and shared a similar sense of humor. Apparently, Lee quit the group the same time Jason did and was thrown out publicly with him. Lee was a kind woman from Sweden who owned 4 Shih Tzus. She was known for her ability to get all 4 to pose together and look at the camera. Anyone who even has one dog knows how challenging this can be. Lee was also known for her kindness. She always seemed to find some time to make genuinely kind comments about everyone's post. Now she and Jason were notorious Facebook outlaws. As it turned out, Lee referred Jason to another group. It was named All New Shih Tzu UK. Jason was quickly accepted into the group. Apparently Lee and a few of his other friends from previous group were members of the new group. He was a shoo-in. This group was different though. It had 10,000 members. It was several times larger than the last group. It seemed harder to make friends because there were just so many posts. Since Jason was now an outlaw, he would just have to get used to it. He decided not to mention that he was thrown out of the last group. It just didn't sound so good. Not long after starting with the All New Shih Tzu UK, one of the administration made a nice comment about Hannah and Floki and asked how Floki got his name. Jason promised to tell the story, but asked if she could wait a little while so he could get better acquainted with the group. That probably didn't make any sense to the other members of the group, but most people weren't ready for a story like this, and truthfully, Jason wasn't ready to tell it just yet. He lived every day with Floki, but putting in writing what he knew about his boy, well, it wasn't easy. After a few weeks, Jason felt ready. He tagged the member who originally asked about Floki and added some pictures and posted his story. Warning: parts of this story are sad, but it does end well. This is the story of our boy Floki and how he got his name. Floki is named after a character on the TV show Vikings. On the show, the character is skinny and scruffy, and because he's a Viking, he has battle scars. As you can see from the first 2 pictures, our guy matched that description. When we found Floki over a year ago, that is what he looked like. We weren't looking for another dog, but when we saw him, we knew we had to help. The vet told us that Floki was at least 12 years old and was completely blind. He spent his entire life in a cage at a puppy mill as a stud. He has 2 5-inch scars on his back and had fresh scabs on his hip bones. Because he spent his entire life in a cage, he never fully developed the muscles in his front legs and paws, and his back legs would not bend. He had infections in both ears, and it appears that some of his front teeth were knocked out. When we took him to the ophthalmologist to see what we could for his cataracts, they told us that he was blind because he has puncture wounds in each eye. Okay, take a deep breath and look at the picture of him now. After all that, this boy's spirit has remained untouched. He has become stronger and healthier and can even run. To see him experience grass for the first time. One day his tail curled up and he became a Shih Tzu. He greets us at the door with a little dance and has even learned to play. You cannot have a bad day with Floki around. He has given us so much. So please don't feel bad for our little Viking. Rejoice with him. This post received a lot of response. Even though Jason was new to the group, the story reached people's hearts, and of course the more likes and comments it received, the more interesting it appeared to others. Many of the posts admitted to tears. None of them expressed anger. It seemed that people were more concerned with the happy ending and the courage and strength of this tiny dog. Hannah had also become very popular with the Shih Tzu group, mostly because she was a Shih Tzu and Jason enjoyed telling stories that made her life seem almost adventurous. The fact that they lived in Chicago and most of the members were from the UK also made them more interesting to other members. It turned out to be a nice relationship. Who knew that Facebook could be so fun? End of Chapter 19. Chapter 20. Keep your nose where it belongs. The Purcells' life was now that of mountains, valleys, and prairies. When it came to Floki and his health, there were highs and lows and beautiful prairies in between. At this point in time, they were enjoying the prairie. Floki was feeling good, and everyone was comfortable and happy. In their personal lives, things were pretty good. They had seen worse. One sunny day, Jason was getting ready to take Hannah and Floki out for a walk. He would always brush them first and then take them out. Floki didn't always get a full brushing because he wasn't always ready to be turned on his back. He had become very comfortable with Jason and Paula and would roll on his back and allow them to scratch his belly from time to time. They knew that this meant he trusted them, and it gave them great joy to know this. He enjoyed it also. On this day, Floki was in the mood, so Jason rolled him on his back and started to brush his underside. He tended to get tangles underneath because he wore sweaters a lot, and they weren't always able to brush there. The brushing went well enough, so Jason decided to use the metal comb. The condition of Floki's coat was better than Jason expected. Then he hit a snag. It may have hurt Floki a little bit, but most of all it scared him. Maybe it reminded him of something in the past. Floki started to squirm. Usually at this point, Jason would just let him roll back onto his stomach, and Floki would soon relax. Instead, feeling confident in his relationship with his boy, Jason decided to give Floki a kiss and reassure him that everything was all right. His nose bumped Floki's face, probably closer to his eyes than Jason realized. Floki let out a sound and bit Jason on the nose. It was one really quick snap. It was a lot more potent than you would imagine. Jason's first thought was that he may have destroyed all the trust that he had built up over a year. Jason let Floki go, and Floki got up and moved away. Paula came running and asked what happened. Jason told the story and was already feeling regretful. Paula said, "You better go take care of your nose. It's bleeding. I'll keep an eye on Floki." To Jason's surprise, he had a 1.5-inch cut on the end of his nose, and it was already starting to turn black and blue. There were also a couple of smaller cuts on his nose to make for a matching set. Floki was missing some of his front teeth, but apparently he kept the good ones. Paula said, "Why don't you take Hannah for a walk now, and I'll take care of Floki." Jason agreed, and he and Hannah went out the front door. Hannah seemed very eager to get out of there, and Jason was in quite a state himself. How could he have done that? What was he thinking? He should have known better. Had he just destroyed all that trust he had built with Floki? His number one goal was to never let Floki be afraid again. He would protect his boy to any length, but now he was the one to scare him. Jason and Hannah had their usual 1-hour walk. came back home the same as always. When they came through the front door, Floki did not run to greet them, as he always did. Paula coaxed him to come down the hallway with her to greet his daddy, but Floki stayed behind her and cautiously followed. The scene was breaking Jason's heart. What had he done? As Paula and Floki got closer, Paula said, "Call him." Jason called to his boy, and slowly but surely, Floki came to him. Everyone rejoiced. The band was back together. All was forgotten. Mountains and valleys. End of chapter 20. Thank you.